Good evening, Singapore. Good evening too to our viewers across the globe. Welcome to our 10th webinar. I am Minnie Lau, the Honorary Treasurer of Philippine Bayanihan Society Singapore and the moderator for tonight. Join me as we discuss being a responsible digital citizen with Mr. Christopher Kuzhuppilly, Public Policy Manager at Facebook, and also with Mr. Chard Amazona of Facebook Digital Tayo. Before we call on our distinguished guest speakers, allow us to play the video of our sponsor, Philippine National Bank.
Building a home for your family in the Philippines? Get connected with the right partner. Your house and lot, condominium, home improvement, and loan takeout is made easy with PNB's OPHL. It's available at PNB LA, New York, Tokyo, Nagoya, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Middle East. OPHL allows borrowers to pay in local currency without remittance fees. No co-borrower required. Qualified borrowers must also have good credit standing, stable employment, and sufficient disposable income. Loan up to 80% of the property value and enjoy easy payment terms. Visit the nearest PNB branch to apply today.
Thank you, Philippine National Bank. Before we proceed, please allow me to introduce the society and provide a glimpse of what we do and who we are. The Philippine Bayanihan Society Singapore was officially inaugurated in August 2001. It is managed by a board of directors led by our Emeritus President Jenny Chua and Honorary President Ranveer Kumar Singh and all our volunteers. We are housed at the Bayanihan Center, a 4-story building located at 43 Pasir Panjang Road, just opposite the Maple Tree Business Center and a walking distance from Labrador Park MRT. The Bayanihan Society is a recognized volunteer welfare organization and a member of the National Council of Social Services in Singapore. Our main objective is to promote advancement of education and skills and to provide a venue for the conduct of education, training, and personal development programs for Filipinos in Singapore. Bayanihan Center is the home to Filipino Overseas Workers in Singapore, or FAUS, which offers courses such as dressmaking, basic baking, hotel restaurant management, caregiving, and many others. However, due to the current pandemic situation, some of these classes are conducted virtually and the others are put on hold. The center is also home to Ateneo LSE program, or Leadership and School Entrepreneurship program, and virtual lessons are ongoing. The society has been also organizing Bayanihan Talks, which have now evolved into webinars like tonight's webinar. And the center has also meeting rooms, tambayan room, letterboxes, and a professionally designed photo studio that is available to Filipino organizations in Singapore. We are also the team behind the popular annual Bayanihan Walk, which is currently suspended. I hope you understand that. And also the annual Bayanihan Lecture, on which a second one was held recently in August. So I hope everyone now has a better understanding or a picture of what we are and what we do. Please do approach us for any training or skill ideas or cultural activity suggestion. Just contact our Bayanihan Center managers, Cecil and Mindy, for any inquiry. So, before we proceed, I'd like to call on Attorney Ranveer Kumar Singh, our Honorary President, to say the opening remarks. Attorney Ranveer, please.
Thank you very much, Minnie. Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and a warm welcome to all of you from wherever you are in the world who are joining us this evening on this Bayanihan Talk webinar series. Minnie has already given you a sort of outline of what the Bayanihan Society of Singapore does. Let me just add on, give you a few remarks of my own. We The Bayanihan Society is actually a manifestation of the cooperation between the governments of Philippines and of Singapore. It was set up as a result of an understanding between the two governments, and this Bayanihan Society has been in existence in the year 2001. It was inaugurated by the then President of Philippines, Mrs. Gloria Arroyo. Since then, we have conducted a lot of activities in terms of education, social and cultural activities. Now, how do we do that? As you have seen from the video, we basically do most of our activities from our Bayanihan Center, and we provide a platform for the entire Filipino community in Singapore to hold the activities at our center. We have got so many kinds of courses going on over the last 19 years, from baking, cooking, aromatherapy, computer literacy, financial literacy, leadership, social entrepreneurship courses, and the whole works, dressmaking, flower making, and so on. So up to now, we have more than about 14,000 people who have gone through our courses and graduated over the last 19 years. We, as part of our activity, we galvanize the entire Filipino community in Singapore, which consists of a number of Filipino groups who are called Philcoms, and they get involved in the organization of the activities. So they use our facilities, they're all free to use our resources, and they collaborate together with us in order to further the interests of the Filipino community in Singapore. In terms of major activities every year, we've been holding the Bayanihan Walk. Unfortunately, this year we're not able to hold the walk in person, but we are planning to hold the Bayanihan Walk virtually. 2 years ago, we also started an annual lecture called the Bayanihan Lecture. During this lecture, we invite prominent people who have got lots of experience in terms of social work, and to come and share their thoughts together with our volunteers. So they are really thought leaders, and they give us some input as to how we can further our activities and promote the interests of the Filipino community in Singapore. So tonight, we are attending the Bayanihan Talk series. This is another one of those talks series that we have been organizing to engage with our community. Earlier, it was used to be held in person. Since June this year, we've been holding it on a fortnightly basis virtually, because the COVID-19 pandemic has prevented us from holding it in person on a big scale. So the only way to organize and reach out to our community here in Singapore as well as overseas is virtually. So we have been encouraged by the response of the audience who have attended the Bayanihan Talk virtually. Our numbers have reached even now beyond 10,000 for every seminar that we've been holding. And we have therefore advanced and make it more frequent. We are holding this talk on a virtual basis every fortnight. Today, we are fortunate to have two speakers from Facebook Philippines to join us, to give us a talk about digital citizenship. So this is an example where we can get speakers from outside Singapore to give us talk to our constituency on this platform without them having to fly over to Singapore to do so. So that's the benefit of this Bayanihan Talk on the webinar series. So we look forward, I certainly look forward to hearing the two speakers on the very interesting subject on digital citizenship, which they're going to talk about. Everything is going digital more and more nowadays, and certainly this is something new, and I hope all of you will be able to gain some insight into this topic and ask some questions to our speakers and engage yourself fruitfully. I hope you have a pleasant evening. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Attorney Ranveer. We are indeed privileged today as we have two guests speaking about being a digital citizen. May I now invite Ms. Mary Ann Arguillas Chua, the Honorary Secretary of PBSS, to introduce our first speaker. Ms. Mary Ann, please.
Yes, thank you, Minnie. Indeed, we are very privileged to have with us this evening Mr. Christopher Kuzhuppilly. He's the Public Policy Manager of Philippines Facebook. And Chris supports Facebook's policy and business priorities in the Philippines, having worked closely with the government, the civil society, and industry partners on creating initiatives to promote digital literacy, online safety, and economic growth. At the same time, he also worked previously with the Supreme Court of the Philippines, where he managed court automation programs. He also worked at the Department of Budget and Management, where he led digitization and ICT reform initiatives to rationalize government IT resources. I'm sure that you're all eager to hear from Chris. So can I invite you, Chris, to do your presentation? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miss Mary Ann, and thank you, Miss Minnie, for the opportunity to share more about the work that we're doing on Facebook and how we're keeping everyone safe on our services. Let me quickly share my presentation. Just there you go. All right, hope you can see my screen now. So yes, it's working. All right, so my name is Chris. I'm a public policy manager from Facebook. I'm based in the Philippines, and I work on a number of, I cover a lot of areas in terms of safety, keeping our community safe, and also some of our programs around digital citizenship. And that's something that we'll be discussing this evening with everyone. And maybe I can start with a quick update on our community. So just just this March, actually, we reached 3 billion people, monthly active users in our services. And we talk about our services, we talk about Facebook, WhatsApp, Messenger, and Instagram. And as you can see, it's a big number. We have a very diverse community, and for us, it's very important. It's our priority to keep everyone safe on our services. And so how do we keep everyone safe on our services? So we have a 5-point approach with regard to when it comes to safety. So first is about policies, and our policies basically tell you, what you can and what you cannot do on our services. So we call them the community standards. Second is we have tools. So tools is all about giving people the power to control their online experience, and you can limit the information and data that other people can see about you, and you can also limit the information that you see or the things that you find on your feed. Third is on resources. So we've developed a number of resources wherein at every point of the service you have access to help and support with regard to taking control of your experience online. And then fourth, one of the most important pillars that we have on this 5-point approach is about partnerships. And we work with governments, civil society organizations, experts, the academia, to make sure that we get the expertise, the insights that's coming from the ground, and we are able to feed that into our ongoing development process of the product. And so we use these insights to improve our policies, to create tools, and also build resources for our community that's relevant for them and that addresses the concerns of everyone using our services each and every day. And lastly, about feedback, and this is also very important, with a 3 billion community, member of our community, if we can get feedback from each and every one of you on how else can we improve our work, that would definitely help us in keeping everyone safe and making sure that the platform is useful for everyone. So going into the policies, just a quick deep dive on this. I mentioned earlier that we have more than 3 billion people using our services, And I think it's a good reminder that this community is very diverse. Some of you are in Singapore right now. Us, we're in the Philippines, and you can imagine that 3 billion people, they're scattered all over the world. They're communicating in different across borders, different cultures and traditions, and it's important for us to build policies that would apply to everyone. And so you can think that it can be a little bit challenging to find that right balance, between giving people a place to express themselves and also promoting a welcoming and safe environment for everyone, given that we're coming from different places. And so when we crafted our policies, when we developed them, they were guided by a set of principles. We made sure that they are operable, meaning our policies are applied to real situations and that they work in real situations. And we constantly improve our policies so that we could, they're relevant and they could, reflect what our community is facing in each and every day using our services. And lastly, we also make sure they are explicable, that they are simple, and we publish our policies. You can go check out facebook.com/community standards to find out more about these policies. So going back into the principles, I mentioned earlier that keeping our community safe is our priority. Safety is just very important for us. We know that if people are not feeling safe on our services, they are not going to come back and share things that matter to them and build those meaningful connections. So safety is our topmost priority, and we all have a role to play in keeping everyone safe, and that's the very purpose of our session tonight. And then second principle is about voice. So we want to give everyone opportunity to share their opinion, use their voice for causes that matter to them. But then it's secondary when it comes to our first priority is still safety. So we don't want people to be using their voice to harm other people. And then third is about fairness. And as I mentioned earlier, we have that big community sharing a lot of content every day, millions of content, and most of them are good. But we also need to make sure that with the scale that we're looking at here, our policies are enforced and applied wherever they are and in every content that's posted on our services. So these are just some of our policy areas. So you can find here more. We have more than 20 policy areas at Facebook, and it's very wide-ranging. From self-harm, impersonation, to graphic violence, terrorism, hate speech. And in the next slide, you'll see some of the policy areas that we have around safety. So let me allow me to go through some of them, and they are very important for our today's discussion on how to be a responsible digital citizen. So first is about impersonation, and this is all about using your authentic identity. We know that if people are not misrepresenting themselves, not hiding behind fake profiles, they are less likely to engage in any abusive behavior in our services. So this is a very important policy on Facebook. So we need to just use one Facebook account and use our names, and basically use our authentic self, be our authentic self online. Second is about graphic violence. So we do not allow people to share content that glorifies violence, so we remove them. Third is about nudity. Knowing that we have a community, a very diverse community. Some can be very conservative, and some can also be below the age of 18. We remove content that's pornographic in nature, or something that shows nudity, because they may not be good for the whole of our community. Fourth is about non-consensual sharing of intimate images, so commonly known as extortion or revenge porn. We also remove them in our services. Fifth, child sexual exploitation images, very important topic. We remove any content around sharing child sexual abuse materials, and we remove these kinds of content regardless of context. So for some, other people will be sharing these kinds of content for awareness or to warn other people, but we tell everyone that they should not be sharing this. They should report these content to us. Another point here is about human trafficking. So we remove content that exploits our community, our users, and we remove them from recruitment, facilitation to the actual exploitative app. And then we also have policies on bullying and harassment and suicide and self-injury. So those are just some of our policies. And going to the next bucket that I mentioned earlier about the 5-point approach, we have tools. And tools simply is about putting you in charge, like giving everyone the power to control their own experience. We've developed a lot of tools, from security tools, privacy tools, safety and well-being tools for everyone to take control of their online experiences and have that flexibility and freedom to engage with people that they want to engage with, limit the information they share online, and protect themselves in as a whole. And there are tools in here on security. A good example of that is two-factor authentication. I really hope that most of you have activated a particular functionality. If not, make sure. I know Chard will be able to cover them in his presentation, and I hope that everyone would follow and be able to activate these important features to protect our accounts. So with regard to tools, we also have tools, as a technology company, we have to use technology to remove bad content from our services. And so this is the way on how we find bad content, harmful content in our services. First is we get reports. So there's two streams here. So first about reports coming from our community. So you let us know that something is not making you safe, or you're not feeling safe about some content that you're seeing online. So you report those content, and then when you report them, they are received by our trained teams. They work 24/7 and speak more than 50 languages to make sure that we check them, we review them against our community standards, and if they violate our community standards, we remove them from our services. Another channel or another way for us to remove content is through our detection technology. As I mentioned earlier, we are a technology company, and so we use technology. We develop artificial intelligence, machine learning to detect bad content on our services even before someone reports them to us. And then based on that, we also remove content at scale. So with this approach, we are able to act. We are able to review more, millions of content at the same time, and also remove them from our services. So next one is, we have, again, while we are in the topic of tools, we are providing everyone with a support inbox. So as soon as you report something to us, you can actually check the status of your reports by going into your support settings and going to your inbox. And, ending this bucket or pillar around tools, this is something that we publish every quarter. This is what we call the Community Standard Enforcement Report, wherein it shows you how many pieces of content we're removing every quarter, and how many of those content were removed before someone reported them to us. So that's the testament of the investment that we're making. We're in the investment that we have around our proactive detection tools, and also a testament of how we want to be transparent and just to take responsibility in keeping our community safe. Next pillar that we have is about resources. So very quick one here. So we have resources around steps for you to change your password. If you encounter any problem on our services, you can go to facebook.com/help, and you will find there resources and tips on how to be able to execute and customize your account. We also have resources under our safety center, so that's facebook.com/safety. And there are specialized resources around for parents, for youth, special resources for you to manage your online well-being, and also some content on bullying prevention. And then partnerships, as I mentioned earlier, one of the most important work that we have is, of course, as a company, as a private company, we need to work with as many organizations that shares the same mission in keeping our community safe. So we work with governments, we work with civil society organizations, the academe, law enforcement agencies, to be able to expand our our knowledge and our insights, to know more insights on what's happening on the ground, and be able to protect our community better. So these are just some of our partners. We work with 500 global safety partners, and we also work with law enforcement agencies, and at the slide in the slide that you can see here, it's a tech coalition that we have. Basically, it's a partnership that we have with other private sector companies. You can see here Amazon, Apple, Google, Microsoft, Twitter, and this is all about, as an industry, how are we protecting our community and building that safe internet for everyone. So we share information with each other. We also develop tools for each other that we share with each other, and then we do research and we advocate for transparency and accountability, and we also come up with collective action together with our partners in government and CSO to make sure that we stay ahead, get ahead these issues. And then while we're on the topic of partnerships, one of the things that we heavily invest in is education programs. And in 2019, we launched the Digital Tayo program in the Philippines. And this is all about building a responsible digital community. And it's very interesting. When we launched it in April 2019, we did actually launch it in Singapore with the help of the Philippine Embassy in Singapore, with the help of Consul Gonar and the ambassador. Wherein we trained over 200 OFW, overseas Filipino workers in Singapore, and we're happy that we've planned, it was before COVID, we've planned to reach out to more Filipinos outside the Philippines, so go into like more countries, but then COVID happened. But we're still very happy that we were able to launch the program in Singapore, and we've tapped our friends also working in Singapore to serve as our trainers in this mission of building responsible digital community or a global community. So what the program really is about is educating our Filipinos on how to be responsible online. And we talk about how to be responsible. It's all about keeping them safe. So we provide tips on how to be safe online, like tips on safety and privacy or protecting your digital footprint. We also have content around respectful online behavior. So how to become respectful digital citizens. And then we also have content around spotting false news. So with now that everyone has access to mobile phones, it's very important that we're able to manage with all the data and information that we can see at the palm of our hands. We are able to discern whether something is true or something is false. So these are just some of the tips that we have. These are just some of our learning modules, and you can find them. Actually, you can download them via digitaltayo.fb.com. You can download the resources, and Charlie will show you quick like a 45-minute session on these critical digital skills that everybody has to be familiar with at this time. These are 21st century skills that's very, very handy. So these are just some of our partners in the Philippines. So the Department of ICT, Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, OWA is our big partner, the Department of Education, and some child safety organizations. So the goal is for us to reach a lot of people, like lots of Filipinos, millions of Filipinos in the Philippines and even outside the Philippines, and just be able to continuously share this message of building of being a responsible digital citizen. And that's actually my last slide. So let me maybe end with the message that building that safe and positive community is actually our shared responsibility. It's a responsibility that we have at Facebook as a platform. It's a responsibility that we share with governments, with civil society organizations, with associations, and similar to the Bayanihan Center. And this is also a shared responsibility with all of you as members of our community. We all have that role. We have that responsibility, that role to play to be respectful, to be discerning, and to keep everyone safe on our services. So again, thank you so much, and have a great evening to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris, for that presentation. That's very helpful. A lot of information and a lot of I think it's very educational. if you don't mind, we would like to have 1 or 2 questions for you. Is that okay, Chris?
Yes, sure.
Okay. Actually, there's one from Attorney Ranvier. His question is a Facebook user capable of removing or blocking any content himself?
Blocking any. All right. Okay. Can you hear? You can hear me, right? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So yes, the answer to that is yes. We are, as I mentioned earlier, we've developed tools for everyone to take control of their experience online. So you can block the person. Say, for example, you don't want to be engaging with one person, you can unfriend, you can unfollow, and you can block that person if you don't want to hear from that person anymore. You can also hide comments. So for example, aside from, you can report them to us. So if you find something offensive, you don't agree with, you can report those content. Or if you feel like some pieces of images should not be on our services, you can report those content against those policy areas that I mentioned earlier. And also you can hide them if they are comments in a certain post that you've created. And if you're managing a page, someone commented on that page, you can also hide those comments on your page. And then there are instances wherein the only available tool for you to use is to report them to us. And that's also important. Please report them. I think there is this habit that, I don't know if it's a very Filipino thing, but Filipinos tend to just leave things where they are. Like they would disagree, or they don't feel like something should be up there, but then they won't report those content to us. And then the result of that is those pieces of content remain on our services. So it's very important that, and this is something that Chard will also cover. If you find something that should not be on our services, you feel should not be on our services, please report those content to us, because that would definitely help us in making sure that our platform remains safe for everyone.
Okay, thank you. There's another question. Follow up from Attorney Ranvier. Can you explain about cancel culture?
Cancel culture. Well, that's a good one. And I've been actually listening to podcasts recently about cancel culture. And unfortunately, and based on the stuff that I've read about it, it's commonly happening on Twitter. And this is all about people calling out other people for their bad behavior. But then there are also some people who use cancel culture to basically shame other people, like in some instances like finding other people and shaming them in terms of making sure that they lose their job, some of the extremes about this.
Wow.
And I feel that in the topic of cancel culture, in a time where we're all part of a digital community, where your action can affect my my social media experience. We're part of this community. We share the same platform, the same venue. It's very important that people be able to actually say something that they doesn't agree with. But then, as I mentioned earlier, we have a content around respectful online behavior, wherein if you call out other people, so I would try, because I know that cancel culture has a lot of meanings, and at least on my as I respond to this question, it's more about calling out other people for their bad behavior. Let's make sure that when we do that, so I'm not calling it as cancel culture, but about calling out other people. When we do that, we need to make sure that we are respectful still. Let's keep in mind that you're talking to a person on the internet. When you're chatting, it's not that you're chatting with a robot or someone that basically not a person. Please bear in mind that you're talking to a real person, and therefore that person has feelings, other perspective, and you should be understanding and giving criticisms that are constructive, and making sure that at the end of the day, our goal here is to build a stronger community and build a meaningful community, safe community, and positive community for everyone.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. That's That's revealing. I did not realize it's going. But anyway, we have another question. How about astroturfing, like fake voice from grassroots or lobby groups? How does Facebook handle those? From Ed, our assistant treasurer.
All right, astroturfing. So this is the first time I've heard about the topic, but then he mentioned something. I mean, the way he defined this is fake. Sorry, can you just repeat that? Fake,
Fake voice from
fake.
grassroots or lobby groups.
Right. So at Facebook, we have policies around inauthentic behavior, and what it says is actually, these are policies around fake behavior, like basically inauthentic behavior. So using fake accounts, or using accounts to misrepresent, say, an organization. So they're probably saying that they are advocating for this, but behind, that they are a farmer, and then they push for agricultural, advocacies, but then behind it, actually, he's not a farmer. He's actually misleading people. So we don't allow them on our services. We, in fact, remove those kinds of content. But then, this is something that's also new to me, but at least what I can share is, we have policies around authenticity. So for everyone to, when they're creating an account, they should use their name. When they're creating their profile, they should use information about who they are in real life. And we remove those kinds of content from our service if they are misrepresenting or misleading other people.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. I have a question though about fake news. How do you check whether that piece of news is real or fake?
That's a great question, and I know Chard will be covering this
Oh,
in his
okay.
presentation. So we have quick 10 tips, but I'll just quickly share some tips on this. Like checking the URLs. If it's coming from a credible news site. Some other sites pretend to be like copy sites of known organization or known websites. So it's very important we check the URLs. We also check if the source, if there is a credible source that's being, some other news would say that, according to an identified expert, but without naming the expert. We need to make sure that when they do that, we actually need to look for who that expert is. So those are, and then we also need to check the video, the images, if they are edited. Sometimes headlines can be clickbaity, and there are a lot of typos sometimes in those fake news articles. So a lot of tips, and Charlie will be able to share those in his presentation.
Okay. I look forward to that. And one last question from Dr. Eugene. He's asking how Facebook is ensuring a healthy discourse on politics, a little bit sensitive, especially in countries having election, that they don't interfere with the election, since you basically mentioned something about being one of the responsibilities of Facebook.
Right. So
some comments.
Yes, and that's a very important question. And Facebook is a very important platform for everyone, because it's a platform for everyone to share what they care about, share about the things that matter to them. And there are instances that, when you're so passionate about one thing, you're so passionate that you're actually fight your way in a conversation and just argue until the other person gives up, right? And that's something that we hope through this program will be able to change that. As I mentioned earlier, the people that we are interacting with online are also people. They're coming from different perspectives, and sometimes the change that we aspire or we want to see is something that we can actually start. And this program, this is an education program, and we know that we're working with the Department of Education to make sure that we can teach these critical skills about being respectful online, at a very early age, so that they can they would grow with that consciousness, and that when they engage online and they engage in this discussions and critical conversations, they are more respectful.
Okay, thank you so much. I think this there will be lots of questions, but let's stop here for now. Thank you so much, Chris. I hope you'll be able to have you again. Yes, and in the meantime, may I call again on Marianne, who will be introducing our next speaker, Mr. Chard Amazona.
Thank you, Minnie. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Now we are again very privileged to have a very young speaker as well, Charge Amazona. He is actually the youth empowerment advocate and skills development trainer. And Chard is Chard, which is a short for Richard, I understand, is widely seen as one of the active champions of genuine reform for politics and good governance in the countryside. He comes from the province of Aurora. And he actually led the Youth Vote Philippines as the coalition's lead convener and spokesperson in 2 national elections, and has focused his efforts in providing enabling spaces for young Filipinos in the grassroots through voters' education and youth agenda empowerment. Currently, Chard focuses on his engagement on freelance works, particularly on content development and content management. Recently, he acquired his featured status as one of the streamers on Kumu, a streaming application from Kumu Media Technologies Incorporated, created for Filipino streamers across the globe. His extensive background in youth development and engagement include his work as formerly program manager of the ASEAN Youth Community, communications manager for Y-Goal Incorporated, president of Philippine Leadership and Empowerment Alliance for Development Incorporated, and he is currently one of the skills development trainers for Facebook Digital Tayo campaign. So please, Chris, please, Richard. Thank you. Take it away.
All right. Thank you, Miss Marianne. Of course, thank you, Minnie, for having us here for this evening. So, again, I'm Chard, and I'll be sharing with you the introduction to digital citizenship. And we hope that, as mentioned and shared by Chris earlier, we'll be able to really expand the discussion as we have our session for this evening. And when we talk about digital citizenship, we are happy that we are in partnership with Bayanihan in Singapore society that provides this enabling spaces for really to talk about, authentic conversation, how to be a responsible digital citizen. And to start off with our discussion for this evening, we hope that we would have a good pre-test activity first. So at this juncture, I would like to invite our viewers to open your Facebook Messenger, and let's have a sort of 10 questions to really test your idea as well. And in this case, kindly check or kindly type in your search bar the digital tayo in your search bar. So once you see it, you can actually see a business or a community, and the chatbot will be able to assist you in some of the questions. So for this session, kindly put the pre-test learn code, which is AHA RA04. And for the sake of, monitoring your answers and basically seeing what you would be able to contribute for the discussion for this evening, kindly choose Mindanao as part of your location, because the program is only settled for the Philippines. But for this case, since we are opening now this discussion to Singapore, so we would like to encourage you to use Mindanao as part of the location for this presentation. So I hope everyone is ready. So if you guys are ready, let us now start. I'll be giving you 5 minutes to answer the pre-test for this matter. So your 5 minutes starts now. So if you have some questions, or if you feel that there are some questions that you have to ask further, we have teams who will be also joining us in the comment section below. So we have last 3 minutes left. Last 3 minutes. All right. So last 2 minutes, I hope you were able to answer the questions. And feel free, if you have some questions, please feel free to comment it in our comment section, especially for those who are watching in our Facebook Live for this evening. All right, last 1 minute. Last 30 seconds. All right, so I hope you're done with our Pretest. So again, just to have an idea, our Pretest actually provides us a glimpse of how well are you informed in terms of security or the topics we will be discussing for this evening. And to proceed now with our main point, and basically as part of our culture in Digital Tayo, we always make sure that a number of us or viewers would be able to participate freely with our discussion. So let us have first a what we call an energizer. So I'll be sharing with you some of the questions or some of the scenario wherein you need to comment digital tayo if you can relate to each situation. So some of the situation might somehow relate with you with your everyday work or some of your passion or commitments and so forth. So we hope that in the comment section below, you can share with your answers via typing digital tayo for the question. So you guys are ready? If you're ready, please feel free. Let's have our first question. So for the first scenario, all right, so I already made dalgona coffee. So for those who were able to create dalgona coffee, especially during lockdown or lockdown for quite some time. So for those who were able to create, kindly type digital tayo. All right. Next question or next scenario. I've been working for more than 10 years. So if you're already working for more than 10 years, don't worry guys. This is just an activity, just an energizer for all of us. So we won't judge you for this matter. So we would like to see how many of us are really working already for more than 10 years. Okay. Next question or next scenario is focused on if you're having difficulty using gadgets or applications. So if you're having difficulty using gadgets or applications, please do comment digital tayo. All right. And next scenario is if you are ready to be a responsible digital citizen, please feel free to comment down below digital tayo. All right. So I hope that all of us are really excited to share with you the topic for this evening. And now let's focus more on this discussion. So me and social media. As we all know, a lot of us are already part of Facebook and all of us are really communicating with a lot of people. And some things that I would like to share when we started using social media. So some of us really joined social media because we wanted to expand our business. Most importantly, others would like to really connect with family and friends, especially for those Filipinos who are residing outside the country. I know all of us, or a lot of us, really joined Facebook or other social media because we really wanted to connect, easier access to our family members. So if you want to call someone who are residing in the Philippines and if you are residing, let's say, in other countries such as Singapore, so you have more opportunity to really connect with them, right? And some of the things that also other people say that they wanted to join social media because they wanted to really create or get updates on what is happening around the world. So others would also like to share experiences with respect to their jobs, with respect to their days, what happened today, and share stories about how they were able to really share kindness and so more and so forth. And most importantly, and most primarily, a lot of us joined social media because we really wanted to share about ourselves. And we hope that with this discussion for this evening, we would be able to really verify well and, of course, maximize the platform to how to be a responsible digital citizen. So when we talk about responsible digital citizen, let us define first what is a digital citizen. So a digital citizen is actually a person, okay? A person that is able to share your information or has knowledge and skills to responsibly use the internet and other digital technologies. So those include using internet, majority will be using applications or mobile phones, for example. So the quantifier here is that a digital citizen is someone who has the knowledge and skills. And don't forget the keyword, which is responsibly or responsibility to really use the internet and other digital technologies. And the big question for all of us, as mentioned by Chris earlier, the 21st century skills, we talk now about how do we become a responsible digital citizen. And in this topic or in this story that I'll be sharing with you for the next 20 to 35 minutes, we will be uncovering different tips how we can make sure that we are actually posing as a responsible digital citizen. So allow me to share with you that as a responsible digital citizen, we protect three things. So we talk about oneself, ourselves. We also protect our family and friends, and we also protect the whole community. And as part of our discussion for this evening, let us focus first with ourselves. So just to share with you everything that we provide. So this is actually a reason to really talk about how we would be able to, protect ourselves is that our trust online. So anything that we share online, any behavior that we do online leaves a mark depending on how we manage information. So some of the questions that mentioned that somehow the host was able to mention earlier or to ask earlier is how do we make sure that we have a good and authentic conversation in a platform? And just to share with you, having those kinds of information or having those kinds of conversation in the platform gives us the opportunity to make sure that we need to understand that anything that we share online forms part of our digital footprint. And when we share things about ourselves, we somehow share profile or personal information. The things that we share also includes posts, messages, and even the things that we share are live. So any content that we share online can form part of our digital footprint. And another question that we have to also answer is that who are the people who has access to this information? And based on our study and based on our initial conversation with a lot of individuals, we were able to see that our online friends and other relationships have access to this information. And how do we be able to really access those information? So let me share with you the things that we share, like our images. If we have some experiences like having vacation pre-COVID times, we were able to post it in different social media platforms and it forms part of our information. Another thing that we also share or the information that other people can access about us is our social media accounts. So I know since we are really moving to a more digital workplace and digital communication style of community as part of the new normal, we are more aware. We need to be more aware that we are sharing this information to a lot of people as well. So other information or other entities who have access to our information also include schools, our job and employers, and of course, if you are active in doing some civic engagement or other programs that might catch the attention of news authorities, so we would have those information be out there, And lastly, about our community or social groups. So, for example, being part of the Philippine society, Bayanihan society, we are sharing our information as well. So, some of the organizations that we are part of forms part of our information. And the challenge now as we go digital, as part of the new normal, is that we have to make sure that we protect our digital identity. So I'll be sharing with you 3 ways to protect your digital identity. So first, we'll be focusing on the content that we show to other people. Second is how do we make sure that we report abusive content. And third, and most important thing is how do we secure our accounts. So let me start with the first one. how do we choose the content that we show to other people? So make sure that when we use the platform such as Facebook, we always present ourselves as authentic as possible. So one of the caveats that we always share with any programs that we are in is that let us be our authentic self. We don't use fake name or profile. And of course, be aware that we can always report any content that will be abusive later on or as part of our psyche. No? And another point that we would like to share when we talk about the contents is more focused on choosing our friends wisely. So in Facebook, we have the power to unfriend, unfollow, or block any profiles that seem dangerous to us. And third point that I would like to share with respect to the content is we need to choose our audience wisely. So one of the important things that we would like to highlight on this discussion is that we need to be careful with what we share. Sometimes it's always important that when we share information out there or in the online world, we make sure that we verify the information as much as possible. And if you have some questions, like for example, how do you do that? Or how can you make sure that you have a more authentic discussion and safer environment, especially in Facebook? Facebook has what we call the Facebook Community Standards. So the Facebook Community Standards act as our quote-unquote code of ethics, our handbook, and in using the platform. So as mentioned by Chris earlier and as shared by Chris earlier, so there are policies that provides us inclusivity, and we always make sure that we respect different views and beliefs. But let us not, let us not be able to be the purveyor of sharing false information. So one of the most important things that we have to highlight as part of the Facebook Community Standards is that we need to make sure that we protect our own, we protect our community by sharing authentic information as well. And having said that, let me share as well that we have, I'm sorry, we're having technical difficulty for this one. But as part of our discussion, when we talk about security and as part of the Facebook Community Standards, let us make sure as always that when we share information online, okay, it must be verified. It must have basis when we share it. And let us be aware as always that anything that we post online, it will always be part of our digital footprint. And going back with my pitch earlier, all right, so as part of the Facebook Community Standards, as part of our Digital Tayo program, okay, we also encourage our users to really be aware of these guidelines. So always remember that when you violate the community guidelines, your account or your profile will be removed or deleted. Or if you do not remove your own content, it will be blocked or it will be removed as it go against the Facebook Community Standards. So please make sure that when you share something, let's make sure that we have verified the information and we make sure that the things we're sharing is actually true. All right? Because it will violate the Facebook Community Standards. Now let us proceed with the second point of our protecting ourselves as part of a responsible digital community. Let's be wary of abusive content. So as we all know, some of the Filipinos who are actually residing in Singapore have experienced sharing or receiving information that they are actually being scammed. So some of the information might be asking money to send to your relatives in the Philippines. So please be wary of this kinds of content. And of course, this is very important, the phishing. Okay? If you feel, if you don't know any person, or let's say someone messaged you and you don't know the profile of that person or you don't have any idea who that person is, and asking you information such as financial information, please be wary of those information. Because some of them might be either be an identity thief or a money thief, or it can be a phishing platform. So please make sure that when you coordinate or when you communicate with this person, please make sure that you don't fall to their schemes. All right? Another point that we would like to highlight as well is report abusive content. As mentioned by Chris earlier, if we see a certain post, a certain content, especially in Facebook, and if we feel that the information misleads us to believing into something else, and it's not even verified or it's not even the truth, So please make sure that we report those kinds of content, because it takes as a community to really report this kind of content so that Facebook would be able to really check on it and verify if whether or not that content is actually misleading. So always remember that we have the power to report any content that is untrue and that misleads us to believing into something else. All right? And having shared the same thing, let me share with you another important factor that when we talk about securing ourselves is our log in and log out alerts, all right? And of course, using strong passwords, which is combination of numbers, letters, and characters. So it's critical, as always, that as users of platforms, social media platforms, we know how to secure our accounts. Because as we all know, as we go digital as well, there are certain personalities such as identity thieves who would be, be able to get your information if you will not be able to secure our profiles. So how do we do that? So let me share with you this information from Facebook. So login alerts. So if you have the opportunity to check with your phones right now, please do make sure that you activate the login alert. So the login alerts provides you as a user to make sure to know whether or not other person or other device is using your profile. So in that way, it will if, like, for example, not a verified device is accessing your account, and automatically Facebook will send login alerts so that you would have an idea if someone is really accessing your information or even your profile online. And another thing that you need to also consider is making sure that you have your security checkout. So it's very important, at least if you can, twice a month or once a week, you have your security checkup. For me, just a best practice from my end, I always make sure that I have or I activate my security checkup every once a week so that I can double check whether or not there are entities accessing my information online. And most critical part that I would like to share as well is the two-factor authentication. So for those who haven't started activating your 2FA, we call it 2FA, we make sure that you also go to the settings of your phone and you add that kind of security. All right? So let us now talk about passwords. As mentioned earlier, let us be aware that when we talk about stronger passwords, it should be a combination of small and big letters. It has different characters, and it should not be short. So one of the best practices I can share with you is that it should be at least 8 characters above so that hackers won't be able to uncover your password. So from my end, just to share with you, I have more or less 32 to 35 characters in my password. So it will be a difficult way to really access or hack my account because I have put already a combination of small and big letters and different characters so that hackers won't be able to uncover my password platforms online. And when we talk about securing our accounts, it's also crucial and critical that we set our location privacy. So some of us might not be aware that sometimes we share our location every time, like for example, when we go to the malls, pre-COVID, or where we are staying. So as much as possible, let us not share those information because there are some entities who might be, aware of those information. So let us make sure that when we protect ourselves, we set our location privacy on. All right. Another important thing is always to check your privacy settings. So please do make sure that as a recap, let us conduct privacy checkups. If you cannot do it weekly, please do make it a habit at least twice a month. And if you haven't actually checked your privacy settings, you can also check your security settings. So the only way for us to protect our digital identity is to always take our Facebook privacy checkup. So you can check, or you can actually take a screenshot for this one so you have opportunity to do it after the session. So just to have a quick sharing for this matter, please do click the 3 line in your Facebook application and please do connect it with your privacy shortcuts. Select review a few important privacy under the privacy section and please click next and answer the following questions about your settings. So let's make it a habit because when we check or when we do our privacy checkup, it gives us the opportunity okay, to really expand different topics, or the privacy checkup for Facebook provides us different topics that will help strengthen our account. So those 5 topics include who can see what we share. So we have access to really, do we share this information or this content to a select few individuals, or do we share this information publicly? So we always have that power as part of our privacy checkup. Another important thing that you can really see in the privacy checkup tool of Facebook is how to keep your account secure. So some of the things that I mentioned earlier, such as creating stronger passwords, will make your accounts secured. And of course, the third point that I would like to share is how people can find you on Facebook. So there are options wherein you can choose whether or not our third degree relationship, like for example, friend of friends, or someone who is not really related with your friends, you can actually activate your settings in privacy checkup and put in there that you cannot be find anything, any platforms. So like if for example, if you don't want to share your information outside Facebook, then you can activate those kinds of settings as part of your security measure. And of course, another point that I would like to highlight as well is your data settings on Facebook. Okay, you can read about it in the privacy checkup tool. And last but not the least is your ad preferences on Facebook. So you always have that power to check and double check as always your privacy. So if you have some questions or some queries about it, you can actually follow our steps mentioned earlier so that you will have a review of what your profile looks like, especially in Facebook. So just a reminder, in securing your accounts, make sure that you always set your password stronger. And you can actually take a screenshot of this one. If you want to enable your login alerts, you can access it through fb.me/login notifications. Or if you want to activate login approvals, you can access it via fb.me login approvals, or log out unused devices, meaning if you connected to other devices not actually part of your personal belongings, you can safely log out them by actually going to fb.me/active sessions. And another point is always checking your security checkup. So you can verify it and check it through facebook.com/help/security checkup. So those information focuses more about protecting ourselves. Now this time, let us focus on our another portion of how to be a responsible digital citizen. So from self, we will now graduate or proceed to protecting our family and friends. So some scenario that I would like to share with you. So I know most of us were able to receive information such as this, like your office mate or someone or your friend who is actually stating or saying that you really hate your boss, or something such as it's such a big hassle being here in the Philippines, or some of your relatives or your siblings also mentioned that they are lazy to attend online classes, especially in the new normal. So always remember that the big question that we need to answer is how would we react to these following posts? All right. As mentioned by Chris earlier, it is critical as well that we need to understand that as part of the 21st century communication, we need to understand that the person or the profile that we are interacting in any platform, social media platform, is actually a person. It's not a robot, it's not a device, but rather an actual person. So it might be your office mate or workmates, it might be your friends or colleagues, or it might be part of your family, such as your siblings, or even your parents. And sometimes, when we are more focused of the things happening around us, especially in the social media world, we always forget that the other person, or there is actually an actual person behind the screen. And as part of the Digital Tayo module that we are always doing for quite some time already, we always value the importance of empathy. So it is very important that we understand as part of our 21st century skills that empathy is our ability to feel what another person is experiencing and understanding from what that person is actually viewing in terms of the point of view. So how do we describe better when we talk about empathy? So just like you and all of us, okay, always remember that the person we are talking to, regardless if they don't have any profile pictures or if you feel that they remove their profile pictures, always remember, especially if you know them as your friend, okay, they are actually an actual person. And remembering that allows us to really empathize them, and let us always put our shoes or ourselves in their shoes. So some exercise that actually provides empathy or practice of empathy is this. So as you can see, some of you might be seeing the figure, it's as if two faces, or some of you might be seeing it as butterfly, or it can be both. All right? Another activity is this. So some of you might be seeing this as two faces, or it can be a vase, or it can be a book. So again, when we practice empathy, when we practice putting ourselves in other shoes, it is very critical and important that we would be able to understand this concept. Because as we live in a more digital world, we have to understand it as part of our 21st century ethics. And the critical question that we have to answer in this kind of communication is that why is it very important to communicate online respectfully? As mentioned by Chris earlier, as part of the Facebook community standards is that we make sure that we are respectful insofar as the views and perspectives and even experiences are concerned. Another point is it is our responsibility to always respect the values, feelings, and beliefs of others and accept differences. So there is what we call an idea that to agree to disagree. Okay, sometimes we might be able to, to agree to most of the other people's views, but we need to make sure that we practice respecting their views. Okay, without encroaching their personal boundaries as well. And another point that I would like to highlight as part of our discussion for this evening is when we respect others and accept our differences, we always recognize that behind every screen is actually a human being. So we can have conversations that allow ourselves and communities to be better and more helpful. So how do we initiate a respectful and responsible online community? It can be summarized by these things. So first, it's very important that when we practice positive online engagement, we have to make sure that we know well our audience. Some of the views that we might be sharing online might not be applicable or might not be accepted by other people. So it's very important that we know our audience as well. Another point is we put ourselves in other shoes or in their shoes. That's how we practice empathy. Okay? Like for example, if a friend of yours in a social media platform shares something that goes against your beliefs, so before you comment, before you react to that post, let us understand first where that person is coming from. Let us put ourselves in that person's shoes so that we would be able to understand deeper why that person is actually posting that kind of information. All right? Another point is that we treat everyone as important. As we all know, yes, we are now on a more digital environment wherein we communicate via video calls or conferences like this. We make sure that we treat everyone as important. The general rule is that everyone is important. So when we practice positive online engagement, we put this information or this practice as part of our personal security as well. Another point is be open. So again, as mentioned earlier, there might be information that might not be applicable or accepted by your personal standards, but let us understand that there are information or there are stories out there that also shows hope for other people. So let us be open to these kinds of information, but be aware as well if those information might mislead a lot of people. So rules of engagement for online community or positive online engagement is let's be open and be sensitive to the environment. If we feel the conversation is, affecting your personal health, mental health, or sometimes challenging your beliefs as well, you have always the option to leave the conversation if need be. In that way, we always make sure that we protect our family as well. And always remember that the questions that we have to ask is, am I really contributing a good conversation with respect to an online conversation that you join or a forum that you join? So those are the questions that can help us to really, filter whether or not we are actually practicing positive online engagement. So that includes our discussion when we talk about protecting our family and friends. Now this time, let us talk about being a responsible digital citizen that protects our community. So the information that we see online includes three things, three important things. Number one, we have factual information. Number two, opinions might be shared and will always be shared online. And there are false information, or we call it fake news in other language. But how do we define those information? Just a recap. So when we talk about a factual information, a fact is always true and always can be proven. So in this case, this is an apple. So I know all of us will always say that the picture that I'm sharing in my screen right now, in your screens right now, is an actual apple, is an apple. So no one will argue in saying that, no, it's an orange. All right? So we all agree that the figure that I'm sharing with you is actually an apple. Okay? That's how we define, or how we make sure that this is actually a fact. Next point is about opinion. So the caveat here is that it is something that cannot be proven. So one typical example that can best describe an opinion is that this is the only apple in the city. So we need more information to verify whether or not this apple is the only apple in the city. So it forms part of an opinion, especially if it came from someone na as part of our community. So as always, how we can differentiate fact from opinion is that a fact can be proven and always true, and an opinion cannot be proven unless we ask more information about it. Okay, it's someone's interpretation of a topic. So that's how we define opinion as well. Now let us proceed to false news. So a false news is something that misleads us. And it can be a news headline, it can be a false promotions of a certain product. So a false news or a false information is something that makes our lives more complicated. So to best describe false news in our everyday social media life, let me share with you what are the real life consequences of false news. Okay? So first point is that when we share false news or when we follow false news, there are actually real life consequences. So some of the effects that includes about sharing false news or false information is that it damages reputation. So sometimes we are angry about a certain post. We are angry about a certain information or content shared online, posted by our common friends or our close friends. And since we can't hold further with our emotion, we actually argue with the person using his or her um, Facebook wall. So always remember that when we share false news, okay, it damages reputation. So what if we heard an information that is not true about a certain individual and we share it online? It forms part of false news. Always remember that as part of our 21st century skill, okay, when we share false information online, it damages the reputation, especially for a person that we talk about online. All right. Another important thing that we have to also consider when we talk about false news is that it might deceive and affect our personal safety. Like for example, in right now we are receiving a lot of emails already that would encourage us to, you know, review our securities in our bank accounts. Always remember that sometimes it might form part of phishing. You know? So always remember that when we receive false information, it will always deceive us and affect us our personal safety. And lastly, it's very critical as well that when we share false news as part of the real life consequences, it causes fear or panic. For example, with our current situation right now with the COVID-19 pandemic, when we share false information about the pandemic, it causes fear, especially with the communities who are residing in the areas that they have limited connection, especially in the Philippines. So one typical thing that we have to consider when we share information online and to verify it as always, because these three important things will always have a real life consequences. Just a recap, it will, if you share false news or false information, it will damage someone's reputation. We will be deceiving a lot of people and might affect personal safety, and we are actually causing fear or panic. So how do we now know if the news article or post is real or fake? So let's have an activity for this one. So I'll be sharing with you some questions. So you need to discern whether or not this information is actually true or false. And you need to reaction that corresponds to the items that you think should be checked. Or in this case, you can actually type the letters that you feel are false news or that will actually answer the questions that we will be sharing with you. So first question to know whether or not the article is a real or fake. So letter A is we read the about section of the website. Or letter B, we double check with the domain or the website name. Or letter C, we check if the post is from a close friend. Or letter D, we check the picture. So how do we know if the news article or post is real or fake? So the right answer for this one is actually 3. Okay? We need to read the about section of the website, whether or not the website is a legitimate one. And also, if we want to verify that information, we double check the domain, the website name. And even you can check the picture as well. Because some of the pictures that we can see online might be manipulated. So it's very critical for us to really double check those kinds of information to spot whether or not that information or content is real or fake. Another question or another idea. So how do we know if the news article or post is real or fake? It is shared by group or page you follow. Letter B, with sources or evidence from credible institutions. Letter C, it should be shared by more than 1,000 people. Or letter D, do we also need to check the author? So to answer this in this kind of information or this kind of scenario, the correct answer is actually 2. We need to double check sources or pieces of evidence from credible institutions because if we will not verify it, it might cause panic. Like for example, the things that we share about the COVID pandemic, if we will not be able to verify the sources, if it came from a credible institution, then we might mislead our Facebook friends. Or if you are skeptical with respect to the author, we might want to share or research further who the author is of that information so that in that way, we would be able to really double check the veracity of that information. Okay? Next point is how do we spot fake news or news article that is real or fake? Letter A, we check with the spelling error, all caps, dramatic punctuations. Or letter B, do we check with date of post? Letter C, do we check with article or do we check with another article that seems familiar? So how do we spot if it's actually a fake news article? Then we need to check these 3 points. First, we need to check the spelling error. So some of the clickbaits right now that we see online is that some of the fake information that other people share can be spotted through spelling error. Or some of the contents written in a website is actually all capital letters. Or if we feel, or if we see, or if we review the content, we might be seeing a lot of dramatic punctuation. So that's actually a fake information. Another thing that we have to double check as well is date of post. So some of the users online might be always critical, need to be critical about checking the date of post. So because there are some information or announcements being shared by our respective governments that might mislead other people. So other people are actually sharing like a content posted like 5 years ago. So let's make sure that we check the date of the post because it might mislead them to believing otherwise that what we are posting is actually true. All right. And another thing is also check the date of the article. If you are skeptical with the information or the content that we receive, we can also check the article whether or not it's published lately or just recently, or it was published like 5 years or 3 years ago. So checking this formatting will always give us the security that we need in order to spot fake information or false information online. So just a recap of how do we do this. So what to check, okay? As part of our function, as part of our responsibility, we need to make sure that we have to check untrustworthy source, unrealistic headlines, unusual URL link, or sometimes we have to double check the date. Again, the poor formatting will always give us the advanced idea that, wait, it's actually a false information. Or if you saw a unverified image, you can check about it. All right? Or even unrecognized authors. So we need to make sure that when we want to spot false information, we have to check these kinds of information. So when we see false information on Facebook, it is very important that we report this. So how do we do that? Click the three-dotted line and then click report post. And we need to put in there, or we need to click, I think it shouldn't be on Facebook. And how do we further verify it? It's actually a false news story. So if you see any false information on Facebook, we can do this. Okay, so when something gets reported on Facebook, so they review it, and if they reviewed it, and then they will remove it if they violate actually community standards of the Facebook. So let's make sure that when we report the information, we have the habit of reporting false information online. So always remember that no information will be included about the person who filed the report when we reach out to the person responsible for the post. And just a tip, okay? How can we be discerning with the posts that we see? Always remember that if we feel that these questions might be really applicable to all of us. So have you experienced seeing a news event and thinking it was true because of rumors or a false image or video? Okay, those are the discerning questions that we have to ask ourselves. And what was the event all about? And the most important thing is, how did we figure out the news, if the news or the information is actually false? So as part of a responsible online community, we wanted to make sure that we share this information and we have this verification questions as part of our habit and our social media engagements. And always remember that we are part of one online community, and we always have a responsibility that we have to share. So let me share with you this video from Facebook.
Every day, people from all over the world share billions of things on Facebook. The conversations that happen here reflect the diversity of this global community. At Facebook, our goal is to create a welcoming and safe environment so people can share and connect with their friends and families. Occasionally, people share content that can be abusive or harmful. We created Facebook community standards to explain what kinds of things can and cannot be shared on the site. For instance, you can't bully or harass someone or post hate speech or threats of violence. If you see something that you think violates these standards, report it by clicking the report link so that we can review it and take action. Not all disagreeable or disturbing content violates our community standards, but by blocking, unfollowing, or unfriending the person or page that posted the content, you can control what you see on Facebook. To learn more about our community standards, visit facebook.com/community standards.
All right. So as mentioned, and of course, I shared to you, if you have some questions and if you want assistance in terms of the Facebook Help Center, we can check it through our links below. It's www.facebook.com/help, or you can check with www.facebook.com/hack. And some of the questions that I'm sharing with you in your screen will be answered through our Help Center. So again, as a part of our ending speech for this evening is a responsible digital citizen is someone who protects ourselves, our family and friends, and of course our community. So again, thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope I was able to share with you #digital tayo. So thank you very much, and of course, good evening. So again, for we will be having our post-learn session for this afternoon. So after my session, I hope that you would go again to our Facebook chat bot so that you would be able to answer our post test. And don't forget to use my learn code. It's AHA-RA04. So again, thank you very much and good evening, everyone. So I'll be turning over again to Miss Mina, of course, and Miss. All right.
Hi. Thank you, Chad, for that. Thank you, Chad, for that very comprehensive session on Facebook and how we can become responsible digital citizen. Everyone is just having all this online access, Facebook and other things. So we are going now into the question and answer session. There's one question from Attorney Ranveer. He's asking, does Facebook assist a user to track the origin of fake news?
Right. So to answer the question, Attorney Render, actually, when we report the information that we see that is actually false news or fake news, Facebook will have to review those kinds of content. And Facebook assists a user. Yes, it assists the user to really track, no, not necessarily the origin, but rather they have ways to really verify whether that information is actual fake news. So just going back with our reminders to always report any information that is actually misleading so that Facebook community team will be able to review that information and may be able to assist you. And again, always remember that when we actually report this, Facebook is always reviewing this information so that we would be having a safer environment for all of us.
Okay, thank you so much, because I think that's a very big issue and a very big problem that we all have: fake news, alternative truth, which is all very confusing for people like us, where sometimes there is no way to verify whether it's real or not, or whether it's true or fake. So that is helpful. We have another question from Mr. June Riggs. He said he's been reporting to Facebook about users who are flooding threads with marketing items, yet he just received something like, your claim is not valid, from a reply from Facebook. How do Facebook do a 5S to these kinds of flooding?
Sorry, I got disconnected. Can you repeat the question, Ms. Nee?
Okay, sorry. Yeah, there's a question from June. How come he said he's been reporting to Facebook or about users who are flooding threads with marketing items, and yet he just received, your claim is not valid, from Facebook? That kind of reply he got from Facebook. So how does Facebook do 5S to this kind of flooding?
Yes. We call it in the Facebook, we call it as spam, right? So as users, it is also important that when we report this kinds of information, Facebook would be able to, when we report it, and if we're not happy about the response of Facebook community about this thing, like, we can actually share, or we can actually coordinate with them closely about it. So there are contents, again, as mentioned earlier, if there will only be 1 or 2 people reporting that information, so like a spam content, then the verification team will have to double check it if it's actually spamming to other users as well. So it's very critical that as users of the platform, we have to practice really reporting those kinds of behaviors online, and we need to make sure that we have a good case of why are we reporting these kinds of information, because that will also help Facebook to really see that, hey, that content is actually spamming our users. So that will also prompt them to really review it better and review it further, so that we can see that this kind of information will be removed as part of the platform.
Okay, thank you. Just a follow-up. I mean, I'm sure everyone experiences all this marketing materials that flood your marketing feeds, that flood your Facebook account. Is there any way to stop all this? Like, we don't want to see them. Is there any way to do that?
Yes, there is there is also a block function in Facebook. So if you see an account that is spamming you already, sharing with you or sending with you information that is not, that is actually bugging you already, you can actually block the account so that it won't be able to post in your timeline. So again, as a measure, we have to maximize the use of the blocking feature so that these kinds of spams will not be seen again in your timeline.
Okay, so that is possible. We can block them, all these advertising feeds that come in.
And of course, if it's actually an ad, you can choose to hide or report ads so that you won't be able to see this information.
Oh, okay, okay. Any other question from our looking at our Facebook and as well as our chat? I think everyone seems to be everyone seems to understand everything that has been explained. Yes, I don't see any new question. So anyway, it's been very interesting, Facebook. Just a quick question though, from Singapore, from the Philippines. What is the most common issue that Facebook has faced in terms of ugly reporting or ugly behavior?
I think the right person to really answer that information is with Chris, because Chris is actually part of the Facebook policy team. But maybe to answer the question, I'm not quite sure lang in terms of the data that they have, since I don't have any access to those kinds of information. But if you really want to know more about this steps or this important information, maybe you can also invite again Chris as well to really explain or expand about steps, so that you would have more glimpse of how Facebook is really handling those kinds of information. So I think that would be my capacity to really answer that kind of information or question for this session.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miss Minnie.
Yes, no, I think we've asked all the questions that have come in. So I think we'll end it here. And thank you so much, Chart, for all the lessons, the explanations, the sharing of all how to be a responsible citizen. So there are I actually took down notes and learned a lot of things. I think one is being respectful, and the other one that I remember is empathy. So we have to see the other side as well, feel the other side on how they can see us. So that would be that. Those are the few things that I think my takeaway. I don't know what the others are, but I hope they enjoy listening and learn a lot of few things. So thank you so much. Thank you. And so now, before we close, I'd like to call Ms. Christy Vicentina, PBSS and PBSS Honorary Vice President, to deliver the closing remarks. Christy, please.
Thank you, Minnie. Good evening to our friends and kababayans in Singapore, and to our friends and families in the Philippines. Mabuhay! On behalf of Philippine Bayanihan Society Singapore, allow me to say thank you to the people who helped us for tonight's webinar. This is our 10th already. So Consul Gonar Musor, I saw you, you're there. I saw you on Facebook Live as well. Thank you for introducing the guest speakers to us and suggesting this very useful and timely topic, especially nowadays that everyone is on Facebook. And thank you, Christopher Kuzhuppilly and Chard Amazona. I hope I said your surname correctly. And for the very informative sharing. Sana po marami tayong natutunan that we can apply not only when using Facebook, but in our day-to-day real life behind the camera, which is more important, and that is to be respectful, to be discerning, to be responsible citizens in and outside the Facebook environment. Maraming salamat din to all our friends who always help us share and promote our webinars. Of course, we have the Philippine Embassy Singapore, led by Ambassador Yap, and tonight represented by Consul Gonar. Dr. Eugene, Eloisa, Miss Rose of PAUS, you're always there. Miss Virgie, lagi kang present. Miss Virgie of STP, FAUS Group Dance. Miss Millet of FAST. Richard and Rex of FLPH, thank you. BNG, Rated J, Lucky Plaza Ladies, UAP, Ateneo LSE. So maraming salamat din. Maraming salamat to all our participants in Zoom and our Facebook viewers. But please don't forget to click the like button for us. Meron lang pahabol na question. Not sure if we can read pa rin siya. Siguro mabilis lang. How do you manage the trolls? So baka we can get back the speaker to quickly share that if you want. Last lang siyang dumating with the Facebook Live. So with that, mabuhay and good evening. Back to you, Minnie.
Thank you. Mr. Chart, would you be able to answer that last question about trolls?
Yes. Again, as mentioned earlier, I think the best person to really answer how Facebook manages the trolls is actually Chris. So I would like to encourage you, like, if you can invite again Chris to answer those kinds of information, because from our end as trainers, we're only more focused on providing the skill sets that's needed for this session. And in terms of policy wise, in terms of these kinds of data, the Facebook policy team will have more opportunity to answer those kinds of information. But to answer so quickly the questions, there are actually some metrics being followed by Facebook in terms of their Facebook community standards, and they make sure that they also consider those kinds of trolls or those users be banned in the platform. So to better explain it, I suggest that you also communicate well with Chris. I hope Chris is also here with us to answer it further. But yeah, that's one thing that's a good question as well too from our audience. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. So yes, before we end, I'd just like to say, please like our Facebook, which is Facebook page, facebook.com/Bayanihan Society SG. Also, please follow us on our Instagram at Bayanihan Society SG. And please support us by donating at www.giving.sg/PBSS. So, so Bayanihan, so thank you all very much. Thank you all very much for joining us. Thank you to the speakers, Chris and Chart, and hopefully we'll be able to meet you again for other sessions. And thank you too to Philippine National Bank for supporting this. And we hope it has been a very fruitful discussion, enlightening, informative, and as well as in a good guideline to how we keep we stay safe online. So thank you so much. And the next Bayanihan will be on October 22nd. That will be about Philippine Stock Exchange, the basic on stock markets, investing, and how investors are protected. So please join us. The guest speaker is Mr. John Garcia, who is the head of the Markets Education Department of the Philippine Stock Exchange. So I hope that was a time that was well spent with us. Thank you so much. And this is Minnie Lau, and together with the board and staff of the Philippine Bayanihan Society Singapore, we say thank you for joining us tonight. Till the next webinar, keep safe. Bye. Bye for now. Thank you.